My name is Caitlin Emmons. I'm a lead staff attorney at Veterans Legal Institute. My focus at Veterans Legal Institute is Discharge Upgrades, where I'm our team lead. At Veterans Legal Institute, our core mission in Discharge Upgrades is to serve our most vulnerable veterans. Those include veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, those who experienced military sexual trauma, and those who also experience discrimination based on race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. For example, those veterans who may have been discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or policies that preceded that. Any of the content in this video is meant as general information. None of it should be construed as legal advice specific to your case or the case that you may take for a client. Who can get a discharge upgrade? Any veteran who received a less than honorable discharge is eligible to have their discharge characterization reviewed by the Discharge Review Boards or the Board for Correction of Military and/or Naval Records. Veterans who may be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, who experienced military sexual trauma, or who may be suffering from another mental health condition related to their service, will find that the boards are looking to grant liberal consideration to their applications, which means there's specific guidance given to the boards to help them process those cases and hopefully produce better results for veterans like you. You may be wondering, how and where do I apply for a discharge upgrade? Each branch has their own discharge review boards and boards for correction of military and/or naval records. The Marine Corps goes through the naval boards. The Discharge Review Board is usually the first stop for a discharge upgrade. As long as your discharge was less than 15 years ago, you can apply to this board to get review of your discharge characterization, your narrative reason for separation, your reentry code, and also your separation code. At this board, there's two options. You can either have your application reviewed on the papers, or you can ask for a personal appearance hearing. Due to COVID, most personal appearance hearings have moved to be telephonic or video conference based. If your discharge is more than 15 years old, or you're looking to have other parts of your record corrected, such as going from an honorable discharge to a medical retirement, you would need to apply to the Board for Correction of Military Records or the Board for Correction of Naval Records. This board has broad latitude to review any record of that department and to make those necessary changes in order to ensure that your record is correct and reflects your honorable service. What do you need in order to apply for a discharge upgrade? The most important thing you need is to fill out the correct form for the board that you're applying to. If you're applying to the discharge review boards, you need to complete a DD-293. You should be looking for the most recent version of this form. If you're applying to the Board for Correction of Military or Naval Records, you need to complete a DD-149. All of these forms are available online, but watch out for outdated forms. Make sure you're using the most recent. You can confirm that the form is still valid by looking at the top corner and seeing when the form expires. That'll ensure that you're using a correct form and will prevent delaying the process of your application. The other thing you need to include in your application is a copy of your current DD-214. You must include this with your application in order for it to be processed. At Veterans Legal Institute, we also recommend that you provide a declaration. This declaration is your opportunity to tell the board what happened to you during your service and why you deserve a discharge upgrade. You may also want to include any relevant military or medical records. You may need assistance in gathering those records. There are online options such as e-VetRecs through the archives that will allow you to electronically request those records. But if you need additional assistance, there are paper forms that can be completed to request your military and medical records. If you're currently receiving benefits such as healthcare through the VA, you may want to submit those VA healthcare records as well, because that helps to establish that you have a condition that is service-connected, and that service connection can help the board understand that what happened to you is directly related to your military service. Finally, you may want to include statements from friends, family, and coworkers. These statements can talk about how you changed during service. Alternatively, they can talk about what you've done since your service. Your post-service history is important to these boards. That allows them to see the ways in which you've grown as a person since your service. If you've committed to volunteer work or an active member of your church or community group, the board wants to hear about that. Alternatively, If you have experienced hardships as a result of your discharge, letters from friends, family, spouses, children can all help the board understand your story. That's why you want to include as many of these references as possible. If you have a good work history, it can also be helpful to get letters from your coworkers, from your supervisors, who can talk about that work history and the progress that you've made. What happens after you apply for a discharge upgrade? The boards have various processing time. The boards can take anywhere from 6 to 48 months to process an application. This means that oftentimes you'll have to be patient while waiting for updates from the board. You may receive correspondence directly from the board. This correspondence may be asking you for your permission to access additional records, such as your VA medical records, or it may be an advisory opinion where a psychiatrist, psychologist, or doctor has reviewed your file and has issued an advisory opinion to the board suggesting how they should rule. While these advisory opinions are not binding on the board, it is helpful for you to respond to them and to take a look at what the advisor is saying. These should be mailed directly to the applicant or to an attorney if they have that assistance. Once the board has reached a decision, they will issue a written opinion with that decision in it. You will receive that decision by mail or by email if you have opted to receive electronic communications. If you applied to a Navy board, you will likely receive, if they've granted it, a corrected DD-214 with that decision. If you've applied to one of the other boards, you may have to do separate follow-up in order to get a corrected copy of your DD-214, even after an order has been entered to correct that form. If, after watching this presentation, you feel you need additional assistance, apply online at vetslegal.org. We have attorneys that are ready and willing to take on discharge upgrade cases. We also have a self-help packet that we are happy to provide to any of our veterans who want that assistance.